very good morning to everyone. First and foremost, I want to extend my sincere gratitude for the invitation to present what the Latin American Federation is, what we accomplished in the Dominican Republic, and what the conference was all about. Well, honestly, for me, it's a pleasure that they have chosen us to give this, I don't know if you would call it a report or to give this information to all of you. My name is Christian Duarte. I am the COO of WestCare of the Caribbean and Latin America, and I wanted to share a bit about how it was and where the Latin American Conference comes from. So where does the Latin American Federation come from? The Latin American Federation is a federation that brings together more than 12 countries throughout Latin America, and it operates within therapeutic communities. How did it start? Well, it originated there in Brazil with Father Aroldo and Father Gabriel. They are two pioneers of therapeutic communities, those that provide treatment services for people who have addiction problems, who have alcohol problems. It arises from the desire to unite all the organizations that work in different countries and to be able to talk, discuss, exchange the services they provide, learn and grow together. And that's where the Latin American Federation of Therapeutic Communities begins. Well, it's comprised of institutions. It's also made up of small organizations, large organizations, independent individuals who provide treatment services. They also work, and studies are conducted, and trainings are held. Essentially, it's about working on a global level with the very latest in terms of addiction treatment services. As a federation, we also support these treatment centers by helping them improve their services and strengthen their practices. We encourage collaboration and the sharing of best practices, learning from what others are doing well, so there is no need to reinvent the wheel. So if a country is already doing this, then how can we bring it to our own country? And vice versa, we go there and they come here. And that is the very essence, the fundamental purpose of the Latin American Federation. The world is constantly evolving, so it means that services must also keep evolving. They simply cannot afford to fall behind, because for us, services truly need to evolve alongside people. Therefore, if we look back 20 or even 30 years ago, a therapeutic community was often very punitive. Well, there were no requirements for it. They didn't use professionals in treatments, no techniques were used, no practices. It was just one person who arrived and performed all the services. So, that mentality needs to be changed. And in Latin America, it can sometimes be quite difficult to change that mentality. So we are helping in making them understand that good practices have to go hand in hand with good service. That's why I always say that everything needs to advance, like cell phones, the cell phones that served their purpose at the time, the first cell phone that came out, which didn't have WhatsApp, didn't have internet, didn't have anything, but it was very good at the time, but that was 30 years ago. The patient from 20 years ago is not the same patient we see today. The professional from 20 years ago is not the same professional we have today. So that is what we address with these conferences, how to come together and discuss and examine all the intricacies, all the problems that we face, both in terms of service and among professionals, because the professional of today is also not the same as 20 years ago. Today's professionals, as we call them, millennials, are a bit more complicated to work with. They're a bit more, you have to be more flexible in different areas. So many people in their own country work with them in a certain way, and it doesn't translate to other countries. They think they're the only ones with this problem, but it's a global issue. The importance of these conferences or of these groups, of these confederations, of these federations within the healthcare system. And recovery, that's something that's worked on at an organizational level. So we are able to meet with other professionals, as I mentioned earlier, and engage in meaningful conversations around a wide range of topics. We can examine what is currently being done in other countries, as well as what is being done right here in our own country. These exchanges allow us to learn from different experiences, share best practices, and identify opportunities to strengthen our work and our impact. What can we improve? This is a shared learning process. That is why I always say it is not solely a government issue nor a community issue. It is a collective responsibility because it impacts everyone. And on a global level, its effects reach all of us. And so it's necessary to be able to discuss, to have a public forum, to be able to speak out, to be able to see what can be done more effectively, because that's what people are truly seeking, what can be done more effectively. So the importance of the conference and the reason why FLACT organizes these international events is that they bring together a large number of people from different countries. These gatherings create opportunities for connection, collaboration, and the exchange of knowledge across borders, and that you can see the love they put into their work, how they truly sacrifice themselves to get to these gatherings because they know the value they hold, and how it adds significant value to the therapeutic communities of their region, of each country. And that honestly makes me feel so proud when I meet with them, when we have our meetings, how they make such great sacrifices to be able to work, to be able to provide a service, to be able to save a life. And we know that everything in this world remains on earth. We eventually leave, but everything stays behind. So when we see how they dedicate their lives to providing these services, how they give everything they have, it truly speaks to their commitment. And it's not about them becoming millionaires. They work 24/7, tirelessly, to save a single life. And that truly makes me feel incredibly proud to be a part of this dedicated work team from the Latin American Federation. And when they told me the reason it was going to be done, when they offered me the chance to do it in the Dominican Republic, it was truly a great honor for me. It was an honor, and it was brought to me by Jorge Olivares, who is the current president of the Latin American Federation, FLACT. It genuinely took me by surprise because we'd only recently been involved for 4 years as an official part of FLACT. I've personally been attending or going to these conferences for a full 25 years now, but I was never an actual member myself. It has been 4 years since we were truly an active part of this, because Dick, we were having a conversation after a president had left office. He specifically asked me to help the incoming president, and that's when I started to become a little more deeply or more thoroughly involved with this new board of FLACT, which is currently chaired by Jorge Olivares. As I was mentioning, it was a great source of pride for me that they asked me to do it in the Dominican Republic, how excited they get, how much they want to exchange ideas, how they want to talk, how proudly they bring what is made in each country, in their countries, how they speak about it. At times, their eyes fill with tears as he speaks about the services they provide, how many people have been able to break free from drug addiction, how many have left behind a life of violence, and how many young lives they have helped pull out of gangs. And that's why I didn't hesitate to say yes to organize the 18th conference. For me, it was a challenge, and it was also a very big challenge to do it in the Dominican Republic. We had no resources, we had no support whatsoever. A conference had never been organized in the Dominican Republic before, but I set my mind and my heart on the idea that I could make it happen, that the only thing I needed to do was to make the government understand that this was something truly important. And sometimes people think the government knows everything, or has everything on the table, or has all the solutions. And addiction for the government is just one chapter or one part, but not the whole picture. The government has many day-to-day situations, many issues they need to address. So we, acting as spokespersons for these individuals who are facing issues of addiction, homelessness, and violence, are the ones capable of approaching the government to have a discussion. So I kept that thought firmly in my mind, that I absolutely had to speak with the government, that I had to arrange a meeting with the National Drug Council of the Dominican Republic, and that I also needed to involve some university to figure out how we could all work together collaboratively. It was a project that took almost a year, during which I had to travel extensively, speak with many individuals, and hold numerous meetings. Precisely at that time, there was a change in the presidency of the National Drug Council. To make him understand, and he was an outsider. He had really never been in this line of work. He is a working person, a sociologist. So, to make him understand how important this conference was, how important it was for the National Drug Council to be able to work, be a part, and collaborate for this to be a success. Later, I had the opportunity to sit down with the rector of UASD, the largest university in the Dominican Republic and one of the oldest universities in the Caribbean. It also highlights how education and issues such as drugs, alcohol, and violence are present within universities, and how there is both a responsibility and an opportunity to be part of the solution in addressing these challenges. So it was a lot of hard work. Meetings, follow-ups, sitting down for lunch, talking, and exchanging ideas. The rector of the UASD University came to Puerto Rico, visited the projects, and saw what we do. It was a year-long undertaking, as I previously explained, for us to try to ensure that the government and the education sector could become participants in this conference. They took it very personally, they made it their own, and that, I believe, was the key to the success of this conference, that we could unite government, university, and a nonprofit organization and work together to make this a complete success. And I believe that was the key. Otherwise, it would not have been a success. The focus was always on the benefit to the community. What was the real value of all this for the community? It was not just about holding conferences and attracting attendees. It was about understanding what meaningful outcomes we were aiming to achieve. And so, building on this whole situation, and after we had begun, the most challenging part emerged, the obstacles. Because there were the economic challenges, the logistical challenges of the venue, and then how to successfully coordinate three major institutions like the Latin American Conference, the university, and the government, all working together. That was a headache, a good headache, because these are large organizations that bring in their own teams, and everyone wants to be in charge. It made coordinating all three groups to work together a bit challenging, but for me it was deeply enriching because I learned a great deal from them. I learned how they work, how they approach their processes, and how they get things done. And it truly was a very joyful project for me to undertake because we spent 2 whole years just there, thinking about how it would all turn out and exactly how we were going to go about doing everything. It reminded me a lot of my early days in therapeutic communities back then. When you were going to open a center 25 or even 30 years ago, you'd just open the center, and only afterwards would you figure out where the money would come from. It was quite different. It was more from the heart. It was more from pure desire. These days, to open up a center, you first have to have the money, and only then can the center actually open. So I made up my mind to say yes first, to move forward with the conference, and then figure out everything else afterward, where the funding would come from, where the support would come from, how to find volunteers, and how to secure a venue large enough to accommodate more than 400 people. But with the desire, the will, everything worked out. Everything was accomplished. The university said, "I will provide the auditorium for 450 people." The council said, "I will provide the logistical part, the promotion, the part of doing the interviews." He put 40 people from the team, the other one put 60 people, the other one put 30 people. And among all of us, it truly was a team effort, a collective one, and those are always the best results. And the most effective way to work is when everyone truly collaborates, when it becomes a collective endeavor, and we all share a common objective. Of course, there were certain situations, yes, there were disagreements. We found ourselves debating quite a bit because one person wanted to approach it in this manner while the other preferred to do it that way. So I took on the role of making sure everything flowed and that things got done, always keeping in mind that it was for the good of the community. We took on a large part of the work, and I delegated much of that responsibility to Iván Moratiel. Iván Moratiel will also speak about his part, what his challenges were, and what the work involved. Because after completing this whole process, which took a year and a half, to get the government to give its approval and the university, the educational institution, to also give its approval, then came the implementation. because all of this before was just talking, discussing, and planning. Then came the action part, and that's when Iván Moratiel joined us. He'll speak about his role. Let me tell you a bit about Iván Moratiel. Iván Moratiel is the VP here in Puerto Rico. I had the chance, actually. We've been working with Iván for 23 years together. He's a person I know who gives his absolute all, and when he takes on a task, he won't stop until it's done. And he's always been like that, a person with an enormous heart, a heart that only wants to help. Helping others, no matter the hour, 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, Saturday, Sunday. He doesn't take any days off. He's a person who always gives his absolute best when it's required. So I'm going to give him the opportunity to tell you everything he had to do to make all of this a complete success.
Greetings. My name is Iván Moratiel. I am the Vice President of Guarabi for the Latin American region, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the organization of the 18th Latin American Conference of Therapeutic Communities. It was a planned process, but above all human and deeply collaborative. It wasn't just about organizing an academic event, but coordinating people, institutions, resources, and efforts so that everything functioned coherently and orderly. The purpose of this video is to explain how we managed to organize an international conference of this magnitude, starting with absolutely no initial budget. More than just discussing the event itself, we want to share the entire process, the key decisions, and especially the practical strategies that ultimately made it all possible. This conference was not put together from available funds. It was built upon previously established relationships, institutional collaborations, and in-kind contributions. It was that relational capital, more than economic capital, that allowed us to secure spaces, staff, logistical support, and over time, the necessary resources to sustain the event. Initial planning began with the formation of 2 working committees. On the one hand, the scientific committee was responsible for selecting the panelists, defining the topics, and managing the academic agenda's schedule. On the other hand, there was the organizing committee, responsible for all aspects of the event's logistics: venues, registration, catering, translation services, vendors, and overall coordination. Constant communication between both committees was key to avoiding improvisation and keeping the direction clear. One of the most significant challenges we encountered was the fact that the conference itself was coordinated entirely from Puerto Rico, yet it was ultimately held in the Dominican Republic. This inherently involved working at a considerable distance, coordinating various teams situated in 2 distinct countries, and effectively managing both operational and significant cultural differences. Work styles, rhythms, and communication methods are not always the same. Learning to manage these differences with respect and flexibility was crucial for this Congress. As part of that process, I had to travel twice to the Dominican Republic. These trips were essential for me to meet in person with key staff from the National Drug Council, with university representatives, and with various suppliers. Being there allowed us to fine-tune details, clarify expectations, and strengthen relationships that would have been much more difficult to consolidate remotely. Furthermore, we encountered significant challenges: coordinating the agenda, last-minute confirmations, financial pressure, and a great diversity of profiles. There were also internal challenges. Some individuals who were part of the committees withdrew during the process and were unable to fulfill the duties they had been assigned. This forced us to redistribute tasks, assume additional responsibilities, and strengthen internal coordination to keep the work from stopping. From the outset, it was clear that an event of this magnitude cannot be achieved alone. Interpersonal and interinstitutional relationships were crucial. The National Drug Council contributed personnel to assist with the logistics. The Autonomous University of Santo Domingo generously provided the lecture halls and all the necessary academic spaces. The UTISA Technological University provided comprehensive institutional support. Daily logistics for the event included participant registration, catering services, and simultaneous translation available in Spanish, English, and Portuguese. From a financial standpoint, the successful sale of exhibitions stands generated approximately $30,000 in revenue. Even so, we began the process without any budget allocated. That's why donations and institutional collaborations were essential, especially the contribution of venues and the staff who collaborated in the conference. As a result, the conference successfully brought together delegations from a total of 17 countries, with more than 360 participants and 56 exhibitors. Furthermore, it provided significant visibility to Guarabi and WestCare, showcasing a true ability to coordinate complex international events. To conclude, the real success of this conference and of any project is not solely found in the agenda or the budget you possess. It lies in the human relationships that are built, nurtured, and sustained over time. It is those very relationships that can transform an idea, even without an initial budget, into a reality.
I truly do believe that from my own personal experience, what I learned most at this conference is that collective work always yields good results, that we must never forget our roots, where we came from, and how we became who we are. As I just mentioned, in the past, when a center was opened, the primary concern wasn't how we were going to secure the funding. The main objective was always how we were going to rehabilitate the people. Then we would look for the money, then we would look for a way to finance that project. So that brought me to thinking and to be able to introspect and not forget where all this comes from, where our services originate, where we come from as individuals, as human beings, to love each other, and that other people need us, and be aware that God is using us as an instrument to be able to get those funds so that they can reach these young people, because they themselves cannot do it alone. And that left me with a great experience and a valuable lesson. And a recommendation I'd give to the other organizations for the future, I know this is done every 2 years, the next one will be in Uruguay, is that we keep doing this, that we continue. There will be challenges, there will be headaches, there will be situations, but all of this has an impact on the community, on people, and that is extremely important to me. That is why we are here, and that is why we do the work we do. Our true leaders are our clients. We work for them. They deserve the very best, our highest level of effort and commitment to provide quality service, a service of excellence, especially considering everything they have already been through. Burdens that we can no longer impose. We must strive to give our very best to this community. I want to thank you once again. Thank you to WestCare, thank you to Dick, to Bob, and to the entire team. From the moment I came on board, when we went through the merger, they stood with me every step of the way. There were many challenges, a lot of nervousness, and many difficult situations because I know it was not easy, but they never left me alone. More recently, I took a survey that was not specifically designed for me, but I decided to complete it anyway. The survey asked what people felt was the best thing they had, or what the best thing to come out of WestCare had been. And for me, WestCare has been like a family. They never left me alone during the hardest moments of this entire process. They were always there, always flexible, and always understanding. I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak with you, to tell you what we did, and thank you for continuing to help the community. Thank you very much.